As we all know, there was a current crisis that had occurred in Japan. This crisis has changed the view on many Americans and many people worldwide about nuclear energy. This crisis, this earthquake that created a disaster in the nuclear plant that released radiation, harmful radiation, that is alerting many people, has created the media to have a false negative image on nuclear energy. Many people are believing this misconception and are not as well informed about nuclear energy to have a great idea on its reality. It's really safer and cleaner. In a Gallup poll conducted in March 2010, 62% of Americans were in favor of nuclear energy. But since the Japan crisis occurred, only 44% were in favor. When asked whether the events of Japan have created a concern whether or not a crisis could occur here, 7 out of 10 Americans said yes, they were concerned, they were worried. Nuclear energy is safer and cleaner, and that is why I would like to inform you about the safety and benefits about nuclear energy. There are 3 reasons that support my claim. Nuclear energy does not emit greenhouse gases. Nuclear energy is beneficial. Nuclear energy does not emit hazardous radiation, as many believe. So as I move on to my first point, nuclear energy is safe and clean. It does not do as much damage to the environment as many believe. It has the lowest impact on the environment. According to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, it requires less area to produce the same amount of electricity as other sources. It does not release harmful pollutants into the air. The water that is discharged from the nuclear plants do not release harmful pollutants, and they meet the strict regulatory standards that must be met by the government regulations. Because nuclear energy is clean, the surroundings around it provide a safe habitat for animals and plants. The water that is released from the nuclear plants never comes in contact with the radioactive materials. Because the water is clean, it is often produced as a wetland, providing for grasses and flowers and plants to flourish and thrive, and providing a great animal habitat. Nuclear energy is safer than coal. According to Patrick Moore, the co-founder of Greenpeace, the nuclear power plants in the United States effectively avoid the release of 700 million tons of CO2 annually. CO2, also known as carbon dioxide, is a primary source of climate change, whereas opposed nuclear energy does not emit any emissions, and it does not contribute to the global change in the rapid increase of global warming. Nuclear energy does not burn fuel, and because of that, it does not emit any emissions. Nuclear energy is safe, and the way it's created is it's created in the splitting of uranium atoms in a process called fission. This fission process produces heat to generate steam, and this is used by turbines to generate electricity. So I move on to explain that it is safer than coal. It is the best viable substitute for coal. And I move on to my second point, that it is beneficial. Nuclear energy benefits our environment and benefits us. In nuclear energy, according to Eris Kandris, has provided to this day 15,000 jobs in the U.S. By 2030, 21% of electricity demand is to rise. This 21% will be needed to have safe, clean energy. and this generation of nuclear energy is beneficial, that China will add an additional 5,000 U.S. jobs in 20 different states in the U.S. We also benefit from having nuclear energy because nuclear energy does not harm our Earth. It does not harm our planet. It is beneficial. It is a safer way of avoiding any damage that could cause to ourselves and our lives. Coal produces smog, acid rain, and it could cause to respiratory illnesses, whereas opposed to nuclear energy does not do any of that. And as I move on to my last point, nuclear energy is not as hazardous as many believe. Many believe that nuclear energy releases tons of radiation, and this tons of radiation is not true. According to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, nuclear reactors are constructed to contain all the radiation inside the plant. Radiation is not emitted out into the atmosphere that harms us. In the nuclear reactors, there are ceramic pellets that are about the size of an adult's finger. They are placed in long metal rods, and then these rods are constructed within thick walls, about 3 to 6 feet thick. These walls trap the radiation, and the radiation has no way of releasing into the air. Radiation, according to EPA, we are exposed to 0.01 milligrams from nuclear plants. These plants, and according to EPA, 3 to 6 milligrams are unsafe. So it meets the safety standards of radiation. And one nuclear plant in Texas, according to Patrick Moore, the co-founder of NRG, it produced more electricity than the whole wind and solar generation combined in this country in the last decade combined. That is way better than producing coal and other harmful plants that produce harmful pollutants. Radiation is harmful at 50 through 100 milligrams when exposed to. The dangers of radiation can cause nausea, headaches, vomit, and people who live within 10 miles of nuclear power plants, 80% of them approve of them. People are able to stand outside nuclear plants and safe. They don't have to wear any masks or any protective gear. They are safe outside their environment because of the safety measures that must be met by all the strict regulations, and the industry provides for strong measures to have a safe nuclear plant functioning, and there's strong security measures that are constructed to avoid any accidents or disasters from happening. And if so, there are safety plans where the plant will shut down if any accident were to happen. And I would like to re-emphasize that nuclear energy, people's misconception about nuclear energy should change. As France, which is a nuclear champion, is the safest and best among the world, and they have 59 reactors producing 78% of their electricity. This nuclear energy is the best renewable source of energy that will benefit and clean our air and reduce the amount of greenhouse gases. Nuclear energy does not emit greenhouse gases. It is beneficial, and the amount of radiation that is released is very minimal that does not harm our health.